Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first official episode of Sunday Service with me, your host, Aaron Chandler. It's been a great week, Here we are, Sunday morning. We're going to kind of, reflect on the week that just passed and anticipate the week to come, I like Sunday mornings. They're my favorite day of the week because, you get that last little vestige of relaxation from the weekend, you got to go to bed early tonight. It's overall not going to be a great vibe tomorrow at the office or wherever it is you work. But you know that you have about 4 to 5 hours now where you can kind of just dick about and not really do much. And you destroyed your body on Saturday night, and that's fine. Now is the time to rest. But it's also the time to do all of the shit that you were supposed to do on Saturday that you couldn't be fucking bothered doing. So it's a mix of just this very relaxed vibe, and then also this oh fuck kind of vibe, I've got a bunch of laundry to do there. That's kind of inconvenient, right? And I'm not even recording this on Sunday. That's a trick of the trade there for you guys. Is that ruining the whole vibe? Maybe. Who knows? But but that's not. No, look, that's not the vibe I want this podcast to have. I want this podcast to feel like an easy Sunday morning, easy like Sunday morning. I think that was Bon Jovi who said that, I'm going to be saying the words, a lot. Maybe as the podcast goes on, I'll learn to not do that. Maybe I won't. Who knows? Fuck. Okay. Let's lock in here and start talking. I've had a great week. How was your guys' week? Do I care? Not really. Am I going to read the comments? No. Will there be comments? No. This is the first episode. There will be one view, possibly two, and they will just be my close friends who I'm showing this to. And then, maybe I'll say something really hilarious later on in the podcast. Maybe that'll be the cold open to this episode, and you've already heard me say that, even though I haven't said it yet. That's interesting, right? That's a little time paradox there for you, right? Or maybe I won't do that at all. Maybe it'll just, maybe we'll just raw dog it. I'll go right into this kind of mediocre rambling about the week I've had. I don't know. I haven't really come up with a good formula for what we're going to do here yet. So who knows, right? Let's get going, right? So I had a good week. One of the things I kind of wanted to talk about here was I forgot this is the first official episode, so let's introduce the concept. Obviously, Sunday morning, nice relaxed vibe, but also fucking getting gear. We've gone over that already. I'm just going to talk about the week I've had, some interesting things that I saw. I'm going to talk about them a little bit, hopefully in a way that's funny. If not, nothing's promised. This is free content. It's on YouTube. You're probably not even watching this. The first person who's going to watch this episode will probably be in 3 years, and it'll be when I've kind of gained a little bit of traction and they're just doing kind of a back catalog thing, right? That's realistically what we're aiming for here. But yeah, I had a good week. I had a lot of time off work this week, so I wasn't really too much involved in the workplace. But one of the things that is actually brilliant, right? And I'm going to be a bit of a feminist here when I say this. One of the greatest things I think has ever happened is women joining the workforce. I think that's brilliant because I can't imagine working in an office or in any sort of, social environment. I work in a restaurant, so let's not say the office. I wanted to make myself sound a little bit more successful, a little bit smarter than I am. But if I was, I wouldn't be doing this, right? So, what was the point of lying to begin with? But one of the things that is just amazing about working somewhere is just gossip, right? I am just a man for a bit of goss. I love a bit of gossip. I love just chatting, with people, sometimes to their face, sometimes behind their back. I love when there's a little bit of a caper in the workplace. I love when there's a bit of a controversy, a bit of conspiracy. That's all shit I love. And before women joined the workforce, let's be real, that didn't exist, right? Because men, we just got along. And look, that's obviously a very hacky premise. I'm sorry I even said it. Not really. But there's a truth to it, right? Because at the end of the day, when men have beef with each other, usually it's violence, or at least it was in the 60s when that was totally cool for some reason. It was illegal, definitely, but everyone was kind of just still doing it, fucking, hey, what do you say about my wife, you fucking, oi, hey, that kind of thing, right? I need to get better at accents and also knowing what people sounded like, because I don't even know what I was trying to do there. Don't even know what I was trying to accomplish. Basically, what the scenario was there was some guy got insulted by another guy at work, and he was like, "Hey, you know, gabba like what would you even say? I've never been in a fight, right? Well, look, that's a story for another time. But right, workplace gossip is what I'm talking about today. So, like in like the late 1800s, they decided to let women get jobs, and that has basically been overall largely good for society because then they got to vote, and then the sexual revolution happened, which is pretty good for men. Because I think a lot of men back then felt like they weren't like getting a lot out of women being in the workforce, but then fucking condoms were invented, and we were all like, fucking, it's okay. That's the basic history of what happened, right? And now we're all kind of okay with it. But one of the benefits that men haven't clocked onto is that things are just so much more interesting. Like before, back in the day, right? Because it happened slowly, women getting into the workforce. Like I think kind of in the 90s to early 2000s was when it really was just like, all right, most women kind of have jobs now. The generation of stay-at-home moms had kind of, or the era of stay-at-home moms had kind of come to an end, largely speaking, in society. And one of the kind of leftovers from that era was reality television, because women, love gossip. I don't know if I'm gonna. Oh no, am I saying? All right. What I'm worried about now is I'm going to come off very sexist here, so I'm going to have to kind of be very careful. But what I'm saying is reality TV, like that's great gossip, right? But the thing about that is you don't know those people, so very quickly it kind of loses its charm. And now if you don't have any gossip in your real life, then it doesn't lose its charm. Like Real Housewives of New Jersey. Like, if your life is kind of fine, it's stable, all your friends have healthy relationships, you get along with people, I bet that shit fucking slaps, like, forever, right? But if you have, like, an intriguing work environment, that stuff gets boring quick. Because what you can't do with the Real Housewives of New Jersey is get involved, And that's fun, right? I suppose, like, a lot of reality TV shows try to give you, like, a way to get involved in things. Like I'm a Celebrity has like the voting thing, you get to vote people off the show, if you are behaving the way you don't like. But really, like all the gossip is between the people in the camp, right? All of like the controversies and all of the the beefs and the romances, that's all just between them, and you're just kind of a pervert, right? You're like a voyeur looking in through the window of your television, right? That's like a metaphor for like, I don't know, society or something, right? Fucking we're getting philosophical on the podcast, all right? Wow, this is such good content. Workplace gossip is a whole other breed because you're part of the whole ecosystem, right? And I think one what's great about it is as a man, there's sort of this like, assumption, this predisposed assumption in society that you're not going to get involved, Like I think the onus for gossip in the world is still, unfortunately, people view it as a very womanly thing, which is very beneficial for me, but probably not great overall because men can gossip too. And let me tell you, I love it. Like I love it more than anything. And I've developed like all these strategies for dealing with gossip in the workplace. Like I heard some great gossip this week. I can't really get into exactly what it was because I still work there and I like working there and I want to keep my job. And I really can't explain what happened without being very, very specific. I'm talking into this microphone. It's not connected. It's the microphone on my phone. I haven't gotten the cord yet to connect all this shit to my laptop. So this is kind of, the sound quality on this episode is going to be pretty shit compared to all of the rest of them forever. So, that's just that's something we're going to have to deal with, right? But with the gossip at work this week, what I realized is that I'd finally crafted my spider web, right? Like every person who, engages in this kind of, workplace, what would you call it? A caper, I guess is the word we're going to stick with. I've already used that, but I want to not repeat words too often because I want it to be, engaging and interesting. When you get involved in these types of things, one of the things that happens very early on, especially as a guy, is that it's kind of hard to get the information. It's kind of a little bit. People aren't really buttered up to you like that. And with guys, men are very private. We don't like to share things too much. And with women think men are fucking stupid because we are. And so they don't want to tell you because, one, you can't keep a secret, right? You're just a fucking idiot guy. And two, you're not going to give them like the feedback they need. You're going to be like, she's going to be like, fucking, did you hear Jonathan's writing Sylvia? And then you're just like, well, fuck, I thought Jonathan was married. And then she's like, yeah, that's the point, you fucking idiot. There's a controversy. And you're just like, that sucks. It's like, you're not adding anything to it. You're not building on the narrative. So that's one of the mistakes men make. And that's why initially at the start, we don't get gossip. So it takes a long time as a man or a woman to build up like a gossip network in the workplace. And this week I realized I finally have mine, right? I finally am in a position where I don't have to seek the gossip comes to me. And that's fucking amazing. I'm the spider at the center of my web. I pluck on a string and information gets back to me. It's kind of like Moriarty from Sherlock, except way less intelligent and way less consequential. But that's what you want. You don't want your actions to have real consequences. You want them to be kind of mundane and, like not effervescent. That's not an appropriate word there at all. Like kind of ethereal and, and kind of, you want to have the flight of fancy element, like they're like a breath on a window. You want it to, you take an action and then within seconds as if you didn't, because it doesn't matter on the large scale of your life, especially when like you don't really plan to be at the job for forever. Right. And I'm finally in that position. So like, when I started this job, now like I had a good gossip network at my last job going, right? I wasn't the spider, I wasn't Moriarty, but if things happened, I'd know about them, right? Now, like it's like, I don't want to get too egotistical, but I'm like, this is Hogwarts and I'm Dumbledore, you know what I mean? Like things don't happen in this school that I don't know about, except for all the times that they do. And that's an accurate portrayal, the giant snake in the hallway. I didn't know about that, but I'll find out eventually, right? Like when I started this workplace, I had this buddy, and he was like kind of really he was the guy who knew all the gossip, right? And we worked kind of closely together. So he'd come in the morning, he'd go out to the smoking area. The smoking area, by the way, that's Gossip Central Station, right? That's the hub. That's where it all originates. That's like the factory where gossip is made, the smoking area. But I don't smoke. I don't smoke cigarettes, which is why, again, even harder for me to get gossip, right? But he go out to the smoking area, like 5 times a day, right? Like for long breaks, right? And he'd be gathering all this information, he'd be talking to the right people, asking the right questions. And I always wondered how he did it, because my kind of approach to gossip was like every once in a while I'd run into someone and they'd tell me what was happening. I'm going to move over here because the lighting is a little bit weird. That kind of made it worse. There we go. So like I just wait for other people to tell me what the main gossip was. He was kind of one of the big influences in that, because he'd give me all of the information he was getting, and he was getting everything. But if I wanted to, learn a bit of gossip for myself, it was definitely a little bit harder, right? It was definitely like people weren't really opening up to me in that way. Like people, it's not that no one liked me. All right, people like me. People like me. Okay, people like what I say. They like what I have to say. They like what I think. I don't know why you'd insinuate otherwise. Okay, so fuck you, right? But I just wasn't I just wasn't that trusted confidant, and I had to learn how to do that. And one of the things that this guy taught me is that one of the best ways to kind of become the person everyone goes to with their gossip. Hang on a second here. Let's get the light. All right, I think angling the camera like that made it a little bit better, right? Oh fuck, it's still not fixed. Oh no. Okay, look, we're just gonna leave it, right? One of the things that this guy taught me when it comes to getting into gossip is that it's important to have a confidant, right? So let me explain. You need to have a confidant in the workplace. I was this man's confidant, let's call him Juan Carlo Dino, right? I was Juan Carlo Dino's confidant in the workplace. And what that gave him was a means to vent the information he'd acquired. Because the thing about gossip is, right, there are different players inside an office space, right? Like there are certain people who, if they have gossip, they'll just tell everyone, they have no propensity to keep secrets. They have no interest in protecting anyone's reputation or safety, or they have no interest in the stability of the overall work culture. These are these are the spores of the gossip in the work culture. These are the nexus beings, right? These people live at the heart of the mycelium network, and they're brilliant, right? But the problem is there aren't a lot of those. Most people aren't. When they hear gossip, their immediate instinct isn't to just go tell everyone, right? Now, there are certainly most people will be in the second category, where if they hear gossip, they don't share it for no reason. But if you ask the right questions, they'll give away the gambit, right? If you get them if you butter them up a bit, if you get them to open up a little bit, they'll tell you what you need to know. And then there's the third type of person, who are people who actually keep the secrets, who don't really, they're broken into two categories. There are people who they'll keep the secret, but if someone else kind of spills the beans, they'll kind of join on in and go, yeah, no, fucking, I totally heard that about Jordan and his fucking secretary, and then there's the true secret keepers, the absolute legends, who they just will not give away any information at all whatsoever. There's other categories of people, of course, my friend Juan Carlo Dino. He was the collector, right? His whole interest was in collecting gossip, and I played a very important role in his ecosystem, which was that I was just the person he told shit to, right? And what that does is it gives him more rep points as far as being a trustworthy receiver of information goes. Because me, I'm a good secret keeper, right? If someone tells me something and they tell me not to share it, I'm not going to share it. And if perhaps, let's say, Juan Carlo Dino tells me something and then someone else tells me something, I'm good at being fucking, what? That's the first time hearing of this. This is crazy. Tell me more. That's kind of a role I find myself comfortable playing. But for someone like Juan Carlo Dino, having someone like me as a scapegoat was ideal, right? Because that meant that he had a reputation of being someone who could keep a secret, but he could still get all of the information out, which is what you want to do with gossip when you get it. The second you get it, you want to just pass it on. It's like a zombie virus. It just has to spread. So he did that in a very controlled way. And because of this, because he, was such a trustworthy confidant, very quickly, people started to kind of go all right, I gave him that little bit of gossip last time. He didn't tell anyone. Here's another bit of gossip, and you do that to enough people, you get that going enough time, you get the ball rolling. Suddenly people are just telling you stuff. Suddenly people are putting information into your brain and you know it all. He's Big Brother from 1984. There's definitely a maliciousness to what he's doing, but everyone just seems to accept it, right? And that was a bad metaphor. But look, I'm not gonna cut that out. We're experimenting here. I'll get better at talking. The podcasts in many ways are just a way to practice talking, right? So I was living pretty at the time. I wasn't putting much effort into workplace gossip. I wasn't creating any drama. I wasn't stirring the pot at all. Pot stirrers are another big category of people. People who hear the drama and then they just want to provoke it and stoke the flames. Those are, we'll get to those. They're dangerous. I forgot about the pot stirrers. And God help anyone who knows one. I'll tell you that. But I was sitting pretty, right? So I wasn't at the center of a gossip web, but I had a direct line to the tarantula. I had a direct line to the apex predator in this environment. I was getting all the information, none of the risk, none of the effort. It was brilliant. And I know Juan Carlo Dino. I know he was keeping some information from me too. I know that I wasn't getting everything. I know he was keeping some stuff to himself. But eventually, Juan Carlo Dino, he left the workplace, and then there was a couple weeks period where I was just getting piss fuck all, right? I was getting zero information, and I don't smoke, so I couldn't go to the smoking area and get things said to me. And second of all, I'm the new kid on the block in the smoking area. Even if I was there, which sometimes I go for a visit, I don't have a fag, but I'll just go out there and sit, see if I can get some tea spilt, get a few cloths, wipe it up, take it home with me. so there was a few weeks there where I was getting zero gossip, and it was in that moment that I realized how much I loved it. Right, that was the moment I realized that gossip was the heart blood of my will to be in this workplace. So I had to start like making moves. So that was the first move I made, was just to be the listener, right? Just listen. If someone tells me something, I listen to it and I don't share it. That was like step one. Now, I didn't have a confidant at the time, like Juan Carlo Dino did in me, but I felt less of a need to get information out there. And it's important. Right. If someone tells you gossip, you don't have to keep everything a secret, right? You only have to really keep a secret when people ask you to. But that's the most important time to keep one, right? It's like if someone comes to you and they're just like, Ronaldo had an affair with Juan Carlo Dino, and you're like, Juan Carlo Dino doesn't even work here anymore. What the fuck? Like, if they don't say to keep that under wraps, that's free game. You can go around to everyone in the office and talk about that. And trust me, people already are. Like, that information, by the time you're getting at that information, everyone knows it already. And that's open gossip, that's a great thing to just talk about, right? And that's kind of in the ecosystem of gossip, that's the primary food supply, just open gossip that anyone can get their hands on. But the fact that it's not a secret, the fact that it's an open secret, let's say, kind of devalues the excitement you get from it. So what you're aiming for is gossip that is not meant to be shared, like you're aiming for like Horcrux knowledge, you know what I mean? Like there's one book, one person read it, and then they destroyed the source, right? Like that's what you're aiming for with gossip. And in order to get that, one is during the period where you're just consuming open gossip, you got to be the guy who's kind of sitting there and just taking it all in, right? Like, you don't want to be the guy, you don't want to be the way someone found out, right? So if people bring up to you that Ronaldo and Juan Carlo Dino have been riding, you go, oh, I heard that, yeah, it's fucking Jesus, and he doesn't even work here anymore, Juan Carlo Dino, so this is like a real affair, you know what I mean? I thought he was married to a woman, right? You never instigate, you never bring it up first, you wait for people to approach you with it, and then people kind of get this sense, they're like, oh, he already knew that, but he didn't bring it up. Like, he's a trustworthy guy, he's a good asset, right? And that's exactly where you want to be, because then that's when people start coming to you, because they've seen now that you're the type to get excited about gossip, which men typically aren't. They've seen that, okay, he's interested in this, he wants to know, he wants to see the stories unfold, he wants the narrative, he wants the plot points, he wants all the details, but he's also not going to spill the beans if he doesn't have to, right? So now you start cooking, right? Now people are coming to you, they're telling you shit that they shouldn't be, they're selling you brazen information, and when they're not telling you to keep it a secret, you're still just sitting on it, you're waiting for people to bring it up to you, you're not going out there, you're not getting anything you're not letting you're not giving a paper trail, you're not letting anything lead back to you, you're tying up all your loose ends, you're cutting all the strings, every time someone brings it up, you almost act like you've heard it for the first time, right? You kind of go, oh yeah, oh, we're talking about that, oh okay, you never let on that you have all the information already. That's the key. You have to play it naive, right? And then before long, people are coming to you. They're like, hey, Aaron, don't tell anyone this, right? Don't tell anyone this. But Nancy, Nancy up in HR, she's pregnant. Yeah. And Gerald in HR, he's not the father. And you're just like, well, why would he be there? They're not together. And you're like, I know, but it's saucy, isn't it? Because who is the father? Because she doesn't have a husband. And they're just like, but look, Aaron, like, don't tell anyone that now. And they always say, first of all, people who tell you secrets, they always know they're taking a risk. All right. They always know that you might say. So you not saying, that's game, set, match, right? That's like, I don't know really what the word for it is, but that once you confirm their trust like that, then that's when the spider web starts to form. That's when all the threads start to come into place. That's when people start to think, oh, okay, Aaron's the guy you can give information to, because 3 months later, someone will say to you, they'll be like, holy shit, Geraldine from HR is pregnant, you know, she's got a baby bump. And you'll just be like, you'll be like, between you and me, man, I knew that like 3 months ago. Don't tell anyone I said that. Don't tell anyone I said that. And then you're like, and then it's like, really? How? Why didn't you tell me, man? And you're like, dude, they asked me not to say anything. Like, you know, I can't be baiting out my sources like that. You know, like you gotta play it like a CIA agent. You know, like a police officer. Like, you know, when the cops have a guy who's, you know, when the cops have a snitch, they don't give up their snitch ever. And that's what you got to be like with the gossip. That's how you build the spider web, right? And then they're just like, I can't believe you knew the whole time. You didn't say anything. You're like, yeah, man, look, hey, I was sworn to secrecy. This is honorable. It's not honorable, right? It's all malicious gossip about your workplace. It's horrible. But then people start to see you as a person of, okay, Aaron is the guy you go to for gossip. And then it becomes a trade, you know? Then it becomes like, you know, like it becomes like villagers in Minecraft, right? Or just trade in general as a human concept. That was probably the easier one to go for. Yeah, you know, they're coming, like people come to you and they'll be like, hey Aaron, I've got something, and you're just like, oh yeah, and they're like, yeah, but heard you might have a little story, had a little story about down in marketing, you know, and then you're just like, yeah, I've got a marketing story, you know. I wasn't sworn to secrecy, but you know, I guess you know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, that kind of thing. And then before you know it, like there's a complex economy growing around the gossip. And now this thing the other day that happened at work. I can't share what it was. But even, first of all, I won't even say that it was that juicy. It wasn't that juicy. It was just the person who shared this gossip with me. The fact that they shared it, I was like, oh, not only is the spiderweb formed, but I'm at the center of it. So now it's like House of Cards, right? Now I'm at the top. Now the only place I can go is down, right? And I'm excited. I'm excited to see how I fall from grace, you know, because I know things, right? And I know things I shouldn't know. And there came a time, I eventually did get a confidant for myself, because there came a time, right, where I was starting to kind of burst at the seams. I was getting that thing where I was like, all right, now I know things of sufficient interest that I feel like I really do want to share them, you know, and I couldn't. And sitting on that did hurt. So eventually I found my confidant. I found my person who I could share this information with. Now, they're not a good secret keeper, but what's good about them is that they're smart. They play the game right, you know. If they know something, they're not going to let on that they got the information from me, you know what I mean? And always, one of the things you have to not assume, but like at the end of the day, if someone's telling me a secret, if they're telling me to keep a secret, at the end of the day, I'm not your brother or your mom, you know what I mean? Like you've told someone else. So there's already a certain level of plausible deniability of it getting back to me. And, you know, my confidant is someone who I'm not known to associate with. So I'm okay. Like, I'm okay with the gossip there, that it's like, all right, this isn't going to be traced back to me. We can, you know, trade tit for tat with gossip, you know, like, you know, Mycroft and Sherlock Holmes, right? Well, like we can just discuss these things as intellectuals, right? And that's just like, so that's how you build a gossip network. I wasn't sure where I was going with that story from the start. Other than that, you know, it's really great to say bad things about people behind their back. No, it's not. It's actually not. Mostly, you see, because there's two types of gossip, right? There's normal, you know, everyday healthy gossip. You know, there's a little bit of that everywhere, and then there's malicious stuff. And I try to stay clear of the malicious stuff. Now, do I gather the information on the malicious stuff? Yes, obviously, because it's the most interesting, right? But that's not the stuff I'm discussing at length. That's the malicious stuff stays between me and my confidant. You know, like that's below the table. We want to behave ourselves, right? That's what we're doing with that. But the surface level stuff, that's open season, right? But you know, then there's also a third category, which is morally righteous gossip, which is you find out someone's doing something they shouldn't be. And they're in the wrong. And now you get to talk about that, right? Because they did something wrong, you know? And they didn't cover their tracks, they weren't careful. And do they deserve a chance at redemption? Obviously, you know, we are human beings, we all deserve a chance at redemption. But that doesn't mean it's not okay for me to acknowledge that they were doing that shit, right? You know? Now, I recognize that all of this is basically against God and that we're trying to give like a certain like mass vibe to this whole podcast. So I do apologize for that. But it was fascinating, wasn't it? Just to see how all the threads come into play. Look, if you don't like gossip, if you think gossip is a negative thing, right? The person to be is who I am, right? Because getting the information is actually kind of exciting enough. And if you're secretive about it, if you're not really sharing with anyone besides, from your confidants, besides from your core one or two people that need to, in my case, just one, but if you're only sharing it, amongst yourselves, it's just fun. Like if you're spreading that information all throughout the workplace, that can get a little bit, toxic, I suppose would be the word, right? It can get a little bit out of hand. But just gathering secrets, that's not harming anyone. That's just a great time. So like if you have any like kind of moral reservations, just do that because it will improve your life. Just knowing this information, it excites you. It does. And you don't have to participate in the sense of, talking about people behind their back, but you should definitely be listening behind their back. You should be listening to everything because you never know. You might get some information that could save your life someday. Or you might find out like that your girlfriend is cheating on you. Oh no. But just if it to bookend this topic, if gossip is something you hate, still listen to all of it because you never know when it might come in handy, right? And it genuinely I don't know if you're like me, but it's more exciting than anything hearing a bit of gossip. Now, I'm sure that sharing it over a bunch of people is also exciting. I'm not doing that, my heart's in the right place. Sometimes maybe not. Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm a good guy. Sometimes I'd be sharing malicious rumors, but that's only when the person has wronged me. So, that's the justice I aspire to. People are going to look back on this and go, wow, he's a monster. But I want you to know that I fully admitted to being a monster. That's who I've always been. Not a very frightening one, but still. So yeah, that was just a little bit of a lesson in the art of gossip. What else happened this week? I was in oh my god, this was horrible. I went to this little bistro where I live on Wednesday. They do like a kind of a brunch menu, right? That's they do like a nice fry up, or maybe a sandwich, soup and sandwich, that kind of thing. A great place to just go for a bite to eat. Kind of very local, like everyone. It's people from the local town going there, not really tourists. It has a very like American diner vibe. Like it's the type of place where if I was a detective, I'd go there to discuss the case with my partner. You know what I mean? Like we'd sit down there, get some bacon and eggs, have a coffee. He tells me his wife is cheating on him again. I go, well, fuck. And then I tell him that my life is fucking awesome, and he's just like, oh fuck, but for me. And then we're just like, yeah, so if a fucking killer's still out there, right? And then it turns out he's the killer in the end. And then maybe he kills my wife, right? But in that moment, I don't know that, so I'm just enjoying the coffee with this guy, and we're having a good time. It's that kind of place. And I was sitting there on my own, and that's fine, right? Sometimes you're alone. Sometimes your friends aren't available. Sometimes your friends don't live in the same town as you, so getting breakfast with them will be inconvenient. Sometimes you try to plan breakfast with friends and they don't want to go, and that's fine. But not really, right? It's not fine. It's actually kind of shaking me to my core. Actually, why don't you like me? You know what I mean? Right? But I was sitting in the bistro, and these two young people walk in. I'm gonna put them mid-20s, let's say. I was about to say a little bit older than me, but I just realized I am in my mid-20s and I am getting old and I will die, and that fate awaits us all. So hey, that's just your daily reminder of that. On what date is it? Who knows? It is the 31st of January 2025, the year of our Lord. We will all die. Just remember that. Okay, now that we got that out of it, these two people walk in, a man and a woman, and look, I'm not Sherlock Holmes, right? Like I like to fancy myself a detective, but I couldn't tell just by looking at these people what stage their relationship was in. It was a man and a woman. And if I had to hazard a guess, I would say they were together a while, just on the way they walked in together. They walked in. He walked in first, right? He led the way, so there was no kind of airs on, right? It wasn't a first date kind of politeness thing, okay? So it felt like I felt the vibe like they've been together a while. Anyway, first date or 75th date, the situation remains the same. They sit down, and pretty much within minutes, you can tell that this woman does not want to be there. So they sit down, right? And then, now it's not a big restaurant. There's like 10 tables max, right? It's a small bistro, diner, cafe kind of thing. And there's two waitresses walking around, which is more than enough. And this man has not been waiting long to get served. He has sat down, and it's been seconds, right? It's been moments since his ass has hit the chair. Didn't put out the chair for the lady. That's fine. Look, big picture, this guy deserved what happens to him in this story. Within seconds of sitting down, he's calling the waitress over. He's like, and one of these guys who, he's not a real man, right? And that's okay. It's okay to not be a real man. I'm not a real man myself. And that's something I think more people need to accept in the world, because a lot of us not real men, we do things a bit wild. Like a lot of them will go down like these Andrew Tate rabbit holes, go into the internet, they'll try to become a real man. They'll start going to the gym, they'll get in their head. They're going to be like, I need to be more, aggressive and assertive. I need to treat women worse, but also better. But better in the way it benefits me, and worse in the ways that benefit me, because that's what real macho men do. It's like, don't be that, because you're not that guy, right? There are people who are born and they're real men, their purpose in life is to go out, cut down some lumber, bring it back to the house, throw it on the fire, slap their wife across the face, have dinner. She still loves them. That's their life story, right? It's not yours. You're not a real man. And first of all, real men don't hit your wives. And most of them don't, because most of them are good guys. That's what annoys the not real men like me, is that they can't handle that the real men are actually good guys, They'll see like a big, strong guy, right? Like he's fucking, he has a whole tree carrying on his shoulder. Not like a log, a whole tree. It's like 30 feet long. He's just carrying it home. And he's got a beautiful wife. They have a kid. And these not real men like myself will say something along the lines of I bet he hits her. It's like, no, he doesn't. He actually treats her remarkably well. And the only reason you want to believe he hits her is because someone who looks like him bullied you in school, right? He looks like the people that were sticking your head in toilets, right? But he's not that guy. He treats his wife very well, because he grew out of that. He grew out of all of his secondary school, shortcomings, and you didn't, all right? And watching Andrew Tate isn't going to fix that. Or maybe it will. I don't know. that's what these guys think, right? They think, all like beefy, men, they're actually shitheads deep down, but I'm gonna become one of those guys, And then these people like me, who are pathetic and meek, they start acting like they're somebody. And we're not, right? We're just there to pick up the scraps, So he calls this waiter over, and he tries to do it assertively, but that's not who he is. So he's just like, so this is what he does. He goes, excuse me. Just wait for her to come over. Because now everyone in this diner knows that they could break into your house. You know what I mean? Like if the fellas from Home Alone were sitting in that diner, they would have been like, that's the guy's house we're gonna break into. Because he's not putting up a fight, right? He's no one. But he'll think he can put up a fight, right? And then and then you get to fuck with him a little bit, and then that's the kind of guy this is. You know, you get like, excuse me. Oh no! Why would you say that, right? Just wait for the waitress to come over. It's not a rush, right? He calls her over. I didn't hear the start of this conversation, but he calls her over, and now he's been sat down for seconds at most. He's been sat there, and this waitress is kind of a little bit like, fucking, what the fuck is going on, right? But she accommodates him because she's nice, you know. She's a nice woman. She's a professional. Maybe they already know what they want, you know, even though they don't, right? So she goes over, and he's just trying too much, you know. He's trying to. This is kind of one of the things that made me think it was more of a first date, because he was dressing to impress with what he was doing, right? He called her over, and he was like, yes, we'd like to know what your vegan options are. And then the waitress is like, oh, it says on the menu what they are. And he goes, right, well, I'd like to discuss that further. Bitch, right? Because she's already, because at this point, right, this waitress, she has come over on the assumption that maybe there's something important. And then she gets there and realizes, oh, this was nothing. And it is nothing, right? Because he could just read the menu and see what the vegan options are. But he doesn't want to do that. He wants to make a statement for some reason. He has something to prove to someone. I don't know if it's the waitress or his woman or himself, but clearly he's not happy with who he is on some level. And this is him trying to prove something. And I don't know what he was trying to prove, but he failed. So she comes over and she goes, oh yeah, the vegan option is there. And he goes, well, you know, if I wanted to get the vegan option in a sandwich, would that be possible? If my partner here wanted to get something in a vegan option, but maybe with a bowl of soup as well, which I don't see is listed, could she get that? And then the waitress was like, yeah, that's fine. You know, like doesn't give a shit. You know, like doesn't give a shit that this guy is trying to have a main character moment, because she's got shit to do, right? She has a job to be doing, and this guy is trying to go through some late in the game character development, trying to discover his masculinity at the age of 26. I'm 2 years younger than that. 24, I'm fine, so it doesn't matter. My midlife crisis will be coming later. And then the waitress just explains this, you know, very politely, and just walks away. And then he looks at his girlfriend, and they don't say anything to each other for several seconds, for several longs. Some beats were had. I would give it couldn't have been more than a minute, but it was enough time for me to have noticed that there was a lot of silence, right? And, you know, I was alone, you know, I was just watching TikTok brain rot on my phone. So I had nothing better to do. So I was like, all right, this is, you know, this guy has made his little statement. He's decided he's trying to be someone. What's going on here? What's going on with this little couple? Is it their first date? Maybe that's why you're trying to prove something, or is there something else going on, right? So I start watching them. And the thing that I noticed is during this silence, during this kind of under a minute long silence, is that this guy is stirring, you know, like he's fucking, you know, he's fucking, it's bothering him that it's quiet, you know. He's shifting around a bit, he's moving his chair, he's just very uncomfortable about the whole thing. The girl, like a statue. The girl looks like she just looked at Medusa, you know. She just still. There's nothing that can move this woman, and it's bothering him. And then I was like, oh, okay, let's see what's going on here. Let's see, you know, maybe it's their first day and she's not really liking him. Maybe they've been together a while and she's mad. And then I'm like, either way, homeboy's on the defensive, right? And my heart does go out to him for that, you know? At the end of the day, I'm a man. I've been there, you know? I've had, you know, a situation where, you know, my girlfriend was upset at me, you know, and maybe she was acting out in public, not to this degree. But you know, I've had awkward first dates where it's like, all right, you know, we're 20 minutes in and we can already tell that we're never going to see each other again, but we got to see this shit through. You know what I mean? So you know, a little bit, my heart went out to him, despite the fact that he was a pathetic imp of a man, right? So like I want to see what was going to happen. I want to see what his strategy was. Now, if I was in this situation, well, okay. First rule of negotiation, right? And this is going to sound like something Andrew Tate would say. And that's okay. Look, that's not ideal, obviously. It's not horrible. It's not great, but it because based on what I'm about to say, but it is. It's something that he probably would say. And it's something that you'd hear like on a business TikTok, which is it's a very simple piece of business advice, but it's that in a negotiation, the person who talks first loses, right? Like if I'm sitting with a girl across from me, and you know I've taken her out for a meal, and she's not talking at all, then I'm gonna enjoy my peace and quiet. You know, I'm gonna stop. I'm just gonna allow this silence to play out. She'll speak when she's ready. You know, at the end of the day, if she wants to say something, she will. But it's not my job, you know, well, I mean, it depends on the relationship. You know, if I've done something to upset her, obviously I'm going to investigate. If I think she's upset, you know, at something related to work, I will investigate. But if I think she's upset at me and I perceive myself to have done nothing wrong, then, you know, I'm not gonna whimper at her feet waiting for an explanation. I'm going to wait for her to come to me. And now, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm a wimp like him, you know. I'm going to be stirring there. I'm going to sit there saying, "Wait, like, is everything okay?" That's what I'm actually going to be doing, right? But a good person would, well, not a good person. A person would do the other thing I just described, right? And you'd respect that person more than you'd respect me, right? And that's fine. And not if they were hitting her, right? But if he was just doing that, if he was just kind of standing on his principles, you'd respect him more. But if he was standing on his principles and then she did talk and then he was like fucking, then you probably respect him less, right? So, but there's a gradient, there's a spectrum of behavior that's acceptable, right, in society, and that's look, we can't get into that right now. That's very complicated. But basically, what I'd want to do is what I just described. What I would do is something similar to what this man is currently doing, but probably not as bad, because I do have some semblance of self-respect. And then what I would do in an ideal world is the fight wouldn't be happening because I'd be a good boyfriend, right? So there's a spectrum of what could, you know, there's a lot of potential threads of reality that we could be going down. Like if I was Doctor Strange, this would be one of the timelines I'd abandon, right? You know, I'd be fucking sitting there, you know, we'd be sitting across from each other at the counter. I was like, all right, this is one of the timelines where Thanos wins, you know, you know, maybe we raise our voices. I'm like, no, not this one. Maybe I ask her what's wrong, and she just like, nothing. Then I'm like, fucking no, on to the next one, you know. And then Spider-Man gets his head chopped off. I'm like, fuck that, you know. And then there's one where like a guy who's not me, but is the boyfriend, is hitting her, and you're just like, no, not that one, you know. Like none of these are the scenario I want to be in, you know. I want to be in a scenario where the fight never happened and we kissed and you know, had a nice time, right? That's the timeline. That's the one timeline we want to be in, okay? So, you know, but we make the best out of bad situations. That's what we do. You know, we're not Doctor Strange. We roll with the punches. You know, we don't look for optimal outcomes. We accept the outcomes as they come. So anyway, I wanted to see what Broski is trying to pull off with his sweetheart. Now look, I think this is just implied already, but I want to say she's out of his league. And now that we've established that, let's continue. So his strategy is to just ignore that she's upset. Worst timeline. Picked the worst possible timeline, right? He picked the worst possible thing he could do, and that's what he decided to do. So he just starts talking, right? And he starts, you know, he starts on a good foot. He asks her a question, you know, he asks her how her day's going. She's kind of shifty. And then she doesn't really give him much of an answer. So then what he does is, instead of maybe pushing a little bit further on the investigation, or maybe just kind of backing off from the conversation, like, okay, you know, maybe now's not the time for talking. What he does is, unprompted, unasked, he just like, well, now I'm going to talk about how my day was going. And then he talked for like 5 minutes, right? And he talked and he talked and he talked about how his day was going. And she said nothing, right? She'd give the occasional nod. Every once in a while she'd go like, And obviously he started panicking, right? So their food comes out. He's, you know, having his food. He's still just waffling away. You know, he's like, "Oh, my food's really good. Is your food really good? No, you're not really enjoying it. Why? You need ketchup for your fries. Miss, some ketchup, please, for my lady." Falling the fuck apart, right? And I wanted to help him. I really did, but obviously you can't do that in real life because why would I ever get involved, right? But I could see him just flailing and flailing and flailing. And there came a point where I realized something. I realized that I knew something he didn't. I knew that this was the last time he'd be seeing this girl. Whether it was the first time or whether it was 100th time, it would be the last time. Because she got to a place where there was no emotional investment, right? So, you know, I think in relationships, right, as one of the things you can kind of look at, you know, whether or not your relationship's going well or going badly, the kind of key sign that a relationship is ending is emotional withdrawal, you know? Like, you know, I don't like to kind of get too emotionally reactive in relationships. I don't like shouting. It's something that kind of always bothered me. You know, I like if a girlfriend and I are arguing, I tend to kind of just like come back into myself. You know, I tend to, you know, get out of the scenario, come back at a later time. You know, just because I'm kind of adverse to confrontation like that a lot of the time. But one of the key signs that you know a relationship is coming to an end is when it comes time to argue, they just don't care, right? When they're mad at you, because I perceived at the start that she was mad at him. But then as the evening went on and as the afternoon went on and he kept talking more and more, I realized she's not mad at him. She just doesn't want him to be there. It's not that she's hearing what he's saying and choosing to ignore him. She's just not listening. Like, her mind is somewhere else. And I realized this. I came to this realization, she's not mad, right? Like, this is just over, right? But my friend here, my buddy sitting across from me, he didn't, right? And that made me sad because he just lacked self-awareness, because he knows this woman a lot better than I do, right? And he's staring right at her, and he can't tell that it's over, right? That is just never going to happen again. Like that she is breaking. I think if I wasn't like clearly watching and nosing in on their conversation, she would have just been like, yeah, hey, it's over, right? So their relationship now, I mean, you know, this is kind of the narrative I've constructed in my head. They could have just been having an argument that day, but it made me sad to realize that, like, people just lack self-awareness sometimes. Like, he had no idea that this woman was just done with him. Like, he had no clue. And it makes you kind of think about your life. Like, have there ever been scenarios where I've been in the situation and everyone around me knew what was happening and I just didn't, you know? Like, it's kind of a scary thing to see happen, right? Because I was there. I knew exactly what was happening. She knew exactly what was happening. The only person who was oblivious was him, and he was doing all the talking. So look, I should probably go into these stories with some kind of semblance of the point I want to make. The point is, boys and girls, to all the ladies listening, because I want this to be kind of a very gender-friendly podcast, you know? And by gender-friendly, I don't mean gay. Will I cut out that last sentence? I don't really like the way I said it. Nah, fuck it, you know? I don't think, you know, I didn't mean anything by it. So, yeah. He's experimenting, you know, it's his first time around. What else did I want to say? Oh yeah, so the story has to have a point, right? Which it didn't before now. This microphone doesn't work. This is all the audio is through my phone camera. The point is, like, it's just next time you're in a public situation, just reflect on yourself. Not even in public, you know. Just, you can never be too self-aware is a thing, but you can always be not enough self-aware. All right, like. And that's what people, you know, that's what people who are against like overthinking and anxiety say. They say, well, you know, you can be too self-aware. No, you can't, because you let your guard down. You stop thinking about the way you are perceived in a society. You know, you get emotionally invested. You want to say your piece. And then that's when you look like a fucking idiot. All right. This guy could have gotten up and walked out of that restaurant with his dignity. Right? That's what he could have done. He could have done that from the moment they sat down, you know? The moment he could have knocked onto the restaurant, right? Because she came in. First of all, it was weird that he walked in before her. Open the door for your girl, right? Be a gentleman, right? But he came in like he came in doe-eyed. He came in like there was no when he walked in, there was no semblance of this isn't gonna go right. I didn't really look at her because he looked so like doe-eyed and happy. I was just like, fucking what? You know when a grown man is really happy, you're just like, all right, clearly you're not aware of life because there's not enough reasons to be happy, right? And they didn't have a baby, so I was like, you're definitely not. Like, they didn't have a baby and she wasn't pregnant, so I was like, there's no reason for you to be this happy, right? You know, like life can't be treating you this well. But you know, I chalked it up to maybe they're in love. You know, maybe he's excited for a first date. Didn't really get a look at her on the entry, but by the time they'd sat down, looking at her, I knew that just things were off. And he still had that doe-eyed smile on his face before he tried to do his little brave little waiter salute. You know, he just wasn't locked in. He just wasn't locked in. He wasn't thinking about where he was. He wasn't thinking. I mean, how embarrassing is it that I saw all of this, right? Like, people say, like, you think back on the embarrassing moments of your life, you're like, oh, people don't think about them anymore. I'm talking about it now. And I don't even know the guy. That's how embarrassing it was. And he could have avoided it all. The second they sat down and she was being all... Now, sorry. No. Sorry. Oh, my mistake. I was about to put the onus on her. Oh, I'm such a fool because it was all his fault, obviously. And I do not mean that in any ironic fashion. Excuse me, miss. All his fault. Already, of course this woman doesn't want him. What's wrong with him, you know? Like, of course, whatever is causing her emotional apathy was his fault. She's not being a bitch, you know? She's having the appropriate emotional reaction. And this guy is completely fucking clueless what's happening. And it just bothers me. Like, you have to be aware of who you are in a situation, you know? Like every time I've broken up with a girl, which hasn't been many times, you know, I haven't gotten into many relationships. I'm not that attractive. Well, that was true in the past. Look at me now. But a breakup has never come out of nowhere to me, right? Like a woman, in more casual situations, a woman cutting things off, it's never been a shock, right? You always know it's coming because you know your situation. You know, she's not responding to your text. You know, there are guys, right? I'll tell this story, right? It was at the last workplace I worked in. Like, it was a long time ago. So I'm going to tell this one. It was at one of the last workplaces I worked in. There we go. I already gave it away. It was the last one, so that doesn't really kind of help the whole narrative, right? But there's this guy I work with, and for some reason he asked me for advice about women, right? Mistake, you know. That's like asking. Well, here's why it was a mistake, because things weren't going well, right? And that's why it was a mistake to ask me, because that's like going to the gym, and you know, like, you go to the gym and you ask like the bios at the gym how to use the equipment, you know, like what the best techniques are. And that makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense because they know what they're doing, you don't, right? But what he did was he went to the gym, broke his ankle, and then asked the lads to have a look at it. It's like, I only know how to handle this when things are going well, right? Like, go to the hospital, right? Like, he was asking me for advice about things falling apart with a woman. I was like, I don't know how to fix that. I have a fucking clue. I just know when it's happening and that it's bad and I need to get the fuck out of there. But he comes to me asking about this woman. So look, he had an encounter with this woman. You know, they had a sexual interaction, and then in the aftermath of the sexual interaction, he's thinking it's gonna be something, right? He's thinking like, oh, you know, like, I had a good time, you know, maybe I'll talk to Cassandra again, you know. And then, you know, he starts, you know, he tries to, you're sending her a few little texts, getting no responses, getting dry responses, getting nothing back, right? And then he's like, oh, okay, well, you know, maybe she's not a good texter. So he's like, oh, so I'll go visit her, I'll go visit her at her desk, I'll see, I'll have a little talk with her, right? And then their conversation is going awkwardly, right? It's not going well, I remember this. Oh, geez, I remember this so clearly in my head when he pulled me aside for this. He comes to me, right? He goes, Aaron, first of all, I mean, if I could go back in time, not the man to ask for advice, right? But I can't believe he came to me. Is kind of what I'm getting at here. But so he comes to me and he's like, Aaron, I got with so and so the other night, when we were after work having a few drinks, right? But it's been weird, right? And I go, oh, how has it been weird? First of all, if it's been weird, it's over, right? Because you had one interaction, right? If it's already this weird, what are you going further about? What are you investigating? Okay, you're building a house of cards on sand, right? He comes to me and he's like, yeah, so he tells me a story. He's like, we got with each other, and then he says to me, and he's like, look, I was texting her away, and I was like, she wasn't really replying. And then I was like, right, well, if she enjoyed it, she'd be replying, right? That's what she'd be doing if she enjoyed it, right? She'd be replying to your text if she enjoyed it because she'd want to see you again. But no, maybe she's a bad texter, right? So that's what's going through my head, right? But I just let him keep talking, and he goes, but yeah, so and whenever I try to strike up a conversation with her, it's just, I know, it's like she seems so shy now, maybe she's just really shy, and I just had to, I wasn't, this was at a time in life where I wasn't even confident I was correct, but I just had to say, I was like, buddy, she doesn't like you. That's what's happening here, right? She doesn't like you, because if she liked you, it would be easy, right? Because that's the thing about men. Men get themselves all confused over girls, but it's like if she liked you, you wouldn't be confused, right? There'd be nothing to be confused about because she'd like you, right? What you're perceiving isn't confusion; it's denial. What you're perceiving, everything is happening, and it's happening exactly the way you think it's happening. You just don't want to accept the reality of the situation, which is that it's over, bro. It's not happening. She's not responding to your text. She doesn't want you. You are just flesh to her, and that's okay. Take your win, take your temporary win, and move on. Right, just move past it. But no. I just think maybe if we could really talk it out, then she'd understand. It's like, no, bro. She's communicating very clearly. You just don't want to see it. Right? You just don't want to see what's right in front of you, right? I don't know. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, the guy in the bistro. He didn't want to see what was right in front of him, That's I think the message of today's episode of the podcast. You got to see what's right in front of you, Maybe there's a Bible quote about that. Maybe there's a Bible quote about seeing what's right in front of you. And maybe that could tie us into our theme of Sunday service. And that could be a little kind of way to end the podcast, right? So here's my Bible. Yeah, I have a Bible. Fucking what are you going to do about it? Do I read it all the time? Not enough. This is really long. Okay, well, I'm going to Google if there's a Bible quote about seeing what's right in front of Excuse me, I just had a little cough. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's a Bible verse that's relevant to seeing what's right in front of you, and then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna read that, and then that'll kind of add thematic resonance to this hour of incongruent rambling, right? So let's do that here now. I'm not gonna cut out me doing it. We're just gonna Google it right here now. Seeing what's right in front of you, quotes. I'm gonna autofill that. and then I'm going to click search, and then I'm going to go into the search bar, backspace quotes, and then I'm going to go Bible quotes. Bible verse even comes up as a recommended. We're in business, right? So look, it's obviously, I'm not the first person to look this up, right? Or just the algorithm, I don't know how the internet works. Don't miss what God has placed right in front of you. That doesn't sound correct. Let's see here. What does Isaiah 40-31 really mean? Fuck that. That's not the one. Here we go. Third or fourth Bible verses by what is right in front of your own eyes. Proverbs 14:12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. That's not really kind of what I'm trying to get at. Okay, I'm going to read the next one before I read it out to you guys. No, none of these are kind of really hitting the mark I want them to hit. I shared it the other day. Maybe that'll be our next story, right? But first we need to get this thematic resonance all together. How about fucking... Okay, this one's gonna... Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. That's not really what I want to say, but people should listen to my advice. That guy 2 years ago should listen to my advice. He didn't. He kept trying to fuck her, right? Idiot. Okay, all right. Look, I'm gonna... Okay, fine. I'm gonna... Proverbs 4, lines 25 to 27. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. So I sharded 2 nights ago. I sharded, and what's interesting about that is it's the first time that has ever happened to me. Right? Because I'm a grown man, right? So I haven't shat my pants since I was a little boy. Now, what's interesting about people who shit their own pants is they act like it happens to everyone, right? They act like everyone's got a shit in their pants story, right? We don't. None of us have shit in our pants stories. I didn't. Not until just 2 days ago. They want everyone to feel like we're all as disgusting as they are, but we're not. We're normal people, or at least I was until 2 days ago, right? It was insane, right? It wasn't very insane, but what I noticed about it, right? It was interesting because I went on the phone with my buddy when it happened. I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and when you just like, ladies, avert your ears to this. I'm about to talk about disgusting shit men do. I just had to scratch my butt a little bit, right? I was laying on my bed, you got the bed back there. I was just laying down on it, and I kind of reached under, and I just gave my butt a little scratch. And as I pulled my finger back up, I caught a little whiff of something just as it was gliding past my face, and then I was like, oh, that was unusual. So I bring the fingers back towards, and I give them a little once over, and I smelled cumin. Cumin, of all things. I hadn't consumed cumin in well over a week. Why was I smelling cumin? Little did I know, the cumin was like a storm on the wind, right? Like, in Chernobyl, when Chernobyl melts down and the guys start tasting metal in the air, the smell of cumin was only an omen of the disaster that was to come. Because, and me being the fool I am, I ignored it, didn't I? Because where there's smoke, there's fire, as they say. So I sat back down and I gathered myself, I put myself together, and I continued my phone call. And then later on in the phone call, I needed to fart. So I farted, right? And I thought nothing of it, I snuck out a fart during a phone call. My friend on the other end hadn't an idea. But then time goes by, the phone call ends, and I stand up, and I feel something perhaps gelatinous, mayhaps. And then the crisis begins, Much how in Chernobyl it took them 24 hours to acknowledge the reactor had melted down, or blown up rather. It took me several moments to realize that my buttocks were smeared in shit. But then crisis mode, activated. I went upstairs. I took down my pants. I realized I needed to poo. Definitely, that's the radioactive material melting into the groundwater, as they say. So I took my time with it, and then we got the heat exchanger under the pad, my bum onto the toilet seat, and we thought crisis averted. But then the meltdown begins, right? The meltdown begins, right? The way I fucked that up because I already said the thing that they did after the meltdown happened. Then I go to wipe my ass. Then the cleanup of the roof begins, wiping the graphite into the core. That's when this begins. Because much like how they were trying to wipe the graphite into the core, how they hundreds of men would go up and they do barely any damage at a time. They'd get one brick each before they had to run away and never go back again. Toilet paper were the biorobots of my rectum that night. Is this appropriate to be saying on the internet? Probably not, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is kind of the tone I want to establish for this podcast. I wiped and I could do nothing. I could do nothing to stop what had come. I could do nothing to adverse the disaster that had awaited me. And I'd just like to point out that earlier that day, I had eaten very spicy wings for lunch and a Madras curry for dinner. So heed my warning, fellow compatriots of the internet. Heed my warning. You never know what you have until it's gone, And a disaster can strike at any moment, so be vigilant. I used to have the dignity of a man who had never shat his pants, and I still do. We didn't go total nuclear meltdown, but there was a glaze, Pripyat had to be evacuated. Those underwear had to be thrown in the bin. I could have washed them, probably, but they were contaminated. They would have come out clean, probably. They were black, but I chose not to because I have plenty of underwear, much like how there were plenty of cities in the Soviet Union. So that's my Chernobyl pants sharting analogy. And that's why it'll take many years for this podcast to ever get a sponsor. And I'm whispering, even though this microphone here doesn't work. So the sound quality on the last 10 minutes of this podcast will probably be abysmal.